evening, everyone. My name's Anju, and I'm here with three lovely representatives from Nord Project. We have Kyle, Slidell, and Dominique, who are going to be presenting to us. And there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions at the very end, kind of an open floor format. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you once again for sponsoring SUS and hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andrew. Good day, everyone. It's a privilege to be here and talk to you guys. So just to start off with, just wanted to introduce the company and myself. I'm Kyle Safi. I'm a senior consultant at North Projects, and I have been working in construction industry for about 9 years now, 7 of which was on site as a site engineer, and I've moved to consulting in the last 2 years where I started with North Projects. Going into North Projects I'd like to go through our sectors and discuss like what North Projects does, and then we're kind of going to go into looking into a deep dive of quantity surveying and cost estimation, because that is pretty much our bread and butter. That's our main scope, our main works at North Projects. I'd like to go into that. I'll introduce my team here as well, and I'll also just talk about a little bit about North Projects and its structure. In terms of the quantity surveying and cost estimation side, we'll be touching things like the schedule of rates, what that is. We'll be looking at Transport for New South Wales, how we integrate the specifications into costing and quantity surveying, because being in New South Wales, Transport for New South Wales is our main client, and a lot of the roads and infrastructure is built according to their specs. We'll go through an example of drawings, some project report quality plans. We'll look at first principle estimation, and then we'll share some details regarding type of software we use. I'm sure you guys will be interested in that to see what skills you can look to get. Okay, so North Projects, we are now 12 years old. The sectors we touch into is transport infrastructure, social infrastructure, utilities, cultural, sports, recreation, property. You can see we pretty much get involved in all the sectors, small projects, large projects as well. Our main sector, our disciplines that we focus on, we do project management services, cost management services, contract, commercial, and dispute resolution for our clients, PPS, risk management services, project planning and control services, assets and facility management. Current projects that we've been working on is the North. So just to explain, we've also got offices in Melbourne, Adelaide, Tasmania, and currently we had just recently acquired a company called Fission. Not acquired, but joined with Fission, who are based in Queensland. So we're also now able to touch there. But we are a cross-border company, mainly in Australia, and we've touched quite some major projects, including the likes of Transmission Gully that was in New Zealand. few more projects that we've been working on, and just yeah, the team. Some people, not everyone was able to join today. Yeah, so wanted to dive into the basic process of quantity surveying and cost estimation. Hope everyone sort of knows what that is at this point in time. So quantity surveying, I think at this point in time, a lot of people, I know I did, you hear surveying and you think of like LiDAR and various things and guys out on site measuring things. Yeah, so that's in the same field, but we also need to measure quantities, and that's like items that go into a project. And yeah, at North Projects, and talking specifically for our Sydney office, this is a lot of our work is quantity surveying and cost estimation. And it's all pre-delivery. We get involved in that pre-delivery stuff. So that's before the contract gets awarded to contractors, and we help our main clients, Transport for New South Wales, but we also tend to help like councils and other small private companies as well, and we come up with a cost and a budget for a project at a certain design milestone. So initially, there's an idea of a project, and in that idea, you'll need to identify what the need is and do cost benefit analysis. Now, in order to get the costs, we need documentation, and that includes drawings, modeling, and then we do a quantification. Once we got all the quantities that go into a job, we then need to break down the cost by first principles. Once we got a first principles cost estimate, we then, depending on how much information we've got on the project and what the design phase of the project is, we'll do risk modeling, because as you can imagine, like I think a lot of people, you would hear like there's project blowouts. Recently, the Snowy Hydro has been in the news, and you wonder how do these projects always go over budget? Like, did they foresee that? So I can tell you now, they definitely foresee some risks, and then sometimes it's just not enough. That gets incorporated into it. Another thing is cash flow. So that's looking at as how long the project will be taken to be delivered, constructed. Now, as you can imagine, prices, inflation has an impact on all of us, and likewise, it has an impact on the industry as well. So costs go up. There's various international things that play a role, and we have to escalate the costs at this present time to the time the project is forecasted to be delivered. So those costs get added on, and then that's when you get a total outturn cost for the project. So that's then the number that goes to the government or the council, the state, for approval. And that once that gets approved, that's the budget. And you'll hear politicians on the news being like, this project's going to be delivered and it's $2 billion, and you wonder where that number comes from. That comes from a company like North Projects. We would have been involved in there somehow. Yeah. So I think would any of you want? So I'll just pass on to Domini to go through.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, awesome. So my name is Dominic Lamb. I'm also another senior consultant here in this company. I've been in this industry for the past 7 years, and during my first 5 years, I was a contractor doing estimations and tenderings. And then from that time on, for the last year and a half, I've been in the consultancy industry doing the same thing, but on the other end of the pre-delivery phases. So carrying on from what Kyle has sort of mentioned, a schedule of rates. So in a summary term, it is essentially an information schedule that gives the contractors or any contractors who are willing to do the job or build the job, have an understanding of what the total scope of works is required to deliver that project. And essentially, it is really devised through different segments or different disciplines of the scope of works. So for instance, for here, we primarily focus on the civil industry side of things. So disciplines including such as stormwater, earthworks, landscaping, pavement works, curb and gutters, pretty much any road or domain or any roads that you see or you drive or footpaths that you walk is considered as a civil industry infrastructure type. More predominantly, things such as tunnels and bridges are called major infrastructure works. And generally, these are all sort of listed out under a schedule of rates or, for instance, a schedule of prices. And here, as you can see, is an example of how we would sort of display this information to the contractors. Generally, looking at this, it probably seems a bit confusing, but generally it is sort of like a set standard that all contractors will understand. And it's just easier for the clients and the contractors to sort of convey like a message across when certain things don't align in terms of a design perspective or a cost perspective. Transport for New South Wales, or formerly known as the RMS specifications. So generally, every single major discipline has a written specification that's been, revised or rewritten multiple times throughout every financial year. And when that happens, they sort of categorize the type of works. So for example, here, this is a pay measurement item for a specification under R113, which is more specifically talking about a pavement/resolution of non-conformities. And in each of these major pay items, they specified a sub-pay item, which you can see in the bold text, pay item R113P1. And that's a sort of scope of works that we need to sort of consider in our pricing. And generally, these specifications list out what these scopes would actually include and what is required to be paid under this item. Reason why they do this type of layout is, so for example, when a project goes up into construction phase, generally from a contractor's point of view, there are still a fair bit of uncertainties that a contractor would encounter and would only really discover it once construction really happens. So a prime example would be, for example, is when we do earthworks. Number one, we can do some sort of geotechnical investigation to find out the ground conditions, but during the investigation period, we can't determine that the entire project footprint area would be of sound soil. So let's say, for example, a contractor starts doing the earthworks, they come across some form of contamination such as asbestos or buried asbestos pipes from decades ago when utilities were sort of installed. This is where the contractor will come to a point and said, hey, we've got to come to a stop, and a variation sort of occurs. And when a variation occurs, these are where these Transport for New South Wales specification pay items come into play. because essentially what happens is we will go back to the drawing board and we'll get the revised documentations. Then we'll start doing the quantifications and then reuse the estimation schedule of rates to help us sort of get like a basis of what the variation cost will be. And generally each of these pay items sort of have a unit into it. And the most common units, you'll come across is a cubic meter, which is a volume, square meters for areas, linear meters as a length, and a count for each. And sometimes you would come across a lump sum cost, which entails a series of works, which would then be broken down into subcategories, which will be explained between the contractors and the client. Furthermore, this is another type of specification that you'll come across. Generally, all these information is more of a read so that the contractors and the contractor can understand. Next slide, there he is. And using those specifications here, this is another example of a drawing. Here, this, as you can see, is a snippet example of, as you can see, it's the M12 motorway, which is currently being delivered by some of the T2 contractors. And here you can see that this is a prime example of a pavement plans. And with these pavement plans, on the right-hand side, on the bottom right, you can see all the different color codes. And what this entails is that to tell the contractors that these are the different types of pavements you would come across when constructing the M12. And to sort of know what the pavement details, generally the designers will have a separate pavement details here as an example, and it shows the different pavement or layers that would be used to construct that pavement type. Next slide, if there is.
Sorry, Don.
That's okay.
Just add in, yeah, so one of the QS points that we'll do is we'll measure the area of each of those different types of pavements. And then we'll, based on the area and these pavement profiles, we'll get a quantity of all these different materials.
This here is another drawing example of a curb and gutters. And underneath the curb and gutters is sort of the drainage system to help, flow water or when a rain event occurs. And as you can see here from the top left-hand corner, you can sort of see a curb and gutter. That's just your standard curb and gutters that you'll see on any city roads before it touches from the footpath, which sort of delineates between a footpath and a road. Next drawing. This one here is an example of a bridge. It's one of the many drawings that you would sort of experience when bridge designs sort of occur. And generally bridge designs are very common. It's going to either be one or the other. Once you do a bridge, it's pretty much a set standard of, re-quantifying it and repricing it. It all comes down to sort of how the methodology of the contractor would deliver that bridge construction. I think I'll pass this second or the last remaining bit to Saidul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Muhammad Saidul Islam. I have more than 12 years work experience, mostly in project construction in the building sector. And I migrated in Australia 1.5 years before. So after joining in North project, I started working as a consultant. So I had experience in Snowy Hydro 2.0 project, and currently I'm working in our North Sydney office and helping out our senior consultant. So, okay, let's move forward. In terms of project report, quality plan, method statement, material and testing, these are the part of project document where all of the mixed design for different material, for example, concrete, shotcrete, and this is in the screen it is showing about the pavement. These are the example only. to show you guys that these are the document we have to study, so that from the document we can find out the information, and those information will be used for the quantity takeoff purpose, and those factors will be affected to our cost. So in addition to that, project quality plan will show lots of compliances. For example, Australian standard, there are some codes highlighted. So if you Google to those compliances, you will find out and study those, so you can have practical experience how those compliances will be implemented for the construction purpose. In addition to that, work method statement will refer how actual work will be executed. There will be detailed process or steps will be guided in those work method statement. Next. Furthermore, you can see those kind of document like project report will show material specification. So these are the example for cement, fly ash and slag and silica. So this can be used, you know, that mixtures for the concrete. So there will be different class of concrete, strength of concrete. So those concrete class or strength will be maintained or verified by the testing. So there will be different testing method. So you can see compressive strength will be according to the Australian standard, and there will be different specific specimen and the days are mentioned. So you have to test the concrete for certain dates, and different type of test you can see in the list. For example, slump test, addition test, hammer test, fiber content test, dry density test, all those things. So these are the common, you can say, the set specification for the material. Next. The most important part after quantification is estimate. Normally I'm learning, this is my learning phase of estimate. So in terms of estimation, the first principle we refer always. So I think Kyle can guide because he's senior estimation consultant.
Thanks, I do. Yeah, so pretty much we've gone through the quantities, and once we got the quantities, and yeah, just to sum up everything, the specifications play a major role in getting the quantities, because like if you just look at a concrete slab, you might not know what goes inside of it. Like I know there's reinforcement and there's things like that, but depending on the requirements of the job, you might need other things added, like accelerator, retardants, and you won't know this stuff until you look at the design documentation and then the specification on what it takes, what's required. So there's it's sometimes not that easy as what it appears. You got to have an understanding of what it takes, what materials go into it, and likewise you need to understand what resources are required to deliver that. So, and that's where we come into first principles estimating. So we've covered materials, but I'd also like what goes into first principles is all these on the side here is labor, material, plant, and subcontractors. Now, labor, it is exactly what it is. That's the men and women that work out on the site. Materials, that's been covered. Plant, that's the machinery and the equipment that go into delivering the project. And then subcontractors, that's usually with very intricate or bespoke items that get delivered by a particular construction company. So we don't go into the very first principles on those items. Usually at a high level, we'll get rates for subcontractors, and we'll apply those rates. So yeah, in order to get your first principles, you need to know what labor is required, what materials, and what plant, and if any subcontractors are required, and before you start. So once you got the first principles, you come to the contractor's cost, and we refer to that as the direct job costs as well. And those are the costs that are taken on by the contractor in order to deliver the project. And depending on the procurement model, and I say procurement model, that means how the project's delivered. If the contractor has to do a D&C, that means they have to design and construct. Generally, most of the time it's just construct only, so the contractor will get drawings given to them, and they'll construct it. Their costs also, there's included in the cost is indirect or overhead costs. So that's the cost that the contractor has in order to run the company, and that might include costs not necessarily directly, or as the word means, indirectly related to the construction. So that can be like directors, managers, office equipment, software at the office, everything used that indirectly to deliver the job. So generally, we also price those up by first principles. We either first principles or by doing a benchmark rate, and we apply that. We get a percentage of the cost, and we apply it to all the rates. Then we've got client costs, and when we say client, this is like the likes of Transport for New South Wales, or council, or states, or private companies. We also look to build up their client costs. If we've got the information, like what teams are involved, like what management, or a chart of all the staff that's involved in the project from the client side, we'll price that up. If not, there's the Transport for New South Wales estimating manual, and that has a lot of data in it that gives guidance on what percentage, depending on the project, type of project, what percentage of the total cost, the client cost, will come in at. And then there's contingency. Like I said before, contingency does get added in, and that's done in various ways. Probably save that one for another presentation, getting into risk contingency. And then finally, escalation is applied, and that's, like I said, that's where the inflation comes in, and you've got the various indices, and we follow generally the government produces indices per year, and that's all done by economists, and we apply those indices to the costs in the future. When we get to the total project cost, otherwise known as the out-turn cost, and that includes the base construction cost, which is the contractor's cost, plus base construction cost is the contractor's cost and client costs, and then contingency escalation, and that gives you the total project costs. And finally, to go through the main things that we require in terms of documents is the standards and specifications that a project is working towards. And because Transport for New South Wales is our body organization in New South Wales, we refer a lot to their standards and specs, and likewise that gets done by all the designers in New South Wales. And council, it's funny enough that council will sometimes have their own specs, but generally they always refer back to the Transport for New South Wales specs as well. You'll need drawings to do your markups. We say markups, that's like to measure areas and measure lengths of things, and then you also need a project report for the design. Then the quantity surveying software that we use Bluebeam, but we predominantly use Bluebeam. There is AutoCAD, there's Revit, and then we obviously use Excel extensively. Excel, I would suggest if you're not too good on Excel, get started now, and maybe you'll see in a few years' time as an engineer, you'll be, it's a joke about using Excel to do everything. It helps with everything. Then finally, the estimation, we have used Excel extensively, but this is limiting to a point, and then you need software that just really makes life more efficient. We're currently using a estimation software called Expert, and that's like Excel times 1000. It's really good piece of software that's being coded and developed by the industry. I think that's it.
Yeah, last slide for the company address.
Okay. Yeah, and
you can visit our website.
Yeah, so
we'll have more information.
This is all our details, and like Sadul said, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or anything. And if we got the time, we'll definitely try to answer them and help you out and guide. Yeah, is there any questions?
Thank you so much, guys, for that informative presentation. Just to the students, in the last 10 minutes or so, we'll open the floor up to questions. If you have any, please chuck it in the chat, and I'll make sure to ask them to the North representatives. But just one from me. Did you have to undertake any qualifications or educations to help you actually do your job, that's quantity surveying and project management? As considering we're all civil students, did you have to do any post-grad courses?
No, I'll answer. No, not really. To do our work, you don't need any additional qualifications. You just need to, I'd say, if you don't go onto site, because like I said before, I've started out on site, and what helped me a lot go a bit faster or progress in consulting a bit faster at North is that I had an understanding of what's involved, the resources and that. But that is not to say that everyone needs to go to site in order to do this job really well. You just need initiative, and we've got you know, Google and that. And if you're not sure on, there's lots of things. Every day I'm not sure of how something gets constructed, and I just Google it. And I Google what's this equipment, what's this plant, and then I start looking up how much it costs to run and that, and you can build it up yourself. So yeah, I think definitely don't, Andrew, what you guys are learning at uni, unless you want to go into a specific field of like that's more along the lines of
project management or structural
yeah,
engineering.
or engineering or design or something to do with materials. That obviously there's that side, but otherwise, no, you just need to come, you can just get started. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kyle. And that's something that's reiterated almost in every class in our predominantly civil engineering cohort as well, how we learn everything now, but then as soon as we graduate and go into workplace, we're going to have to relearn new things and start learning a lot of new things. So that's good to know. Thank you. There's a question in the chat that's employability related, that asks which skills are helpful to get a job in your fourth year or your final, especially after graduation. Now, there was a couple of softwares that you touched on, Excel, AutoCAD, Revit. Is there anything else that you'd guys like to highlight potentially to help students be more employable?
I can answer this question. I can answer that question. Not only software skills, I would say the initiative and the communication. Predominantly when I did a lot of interviews in the past, number one thing that I sort of look at is sort of how interested the peer is. More so, what one key thing that could potentially, you know, open the actual, you know, interviewer's eyes is you asking them specific questions about the company, or even simple questions like, you know, what do you people in the office do from day to day? Because what that shows is that, you know, you already have that sort of initial step that you're wanting to join the company, wanting to start work there. And what that does is it also inclines that for myself that, oh, you know, this person's done his research, he's, you know, at least tried to ask us some feedback on it, and things like that can actually go a long way. The technical side of things, that just comes down from experience. And for me personally, I also did a degree in civil engineering as well too. And I can tell you that now, about 90% of the content that I learned in my 4 years of uni, I probably haven't touched. So for example, calculus, differentiation, iterations, all that stuff is things that I haven't really utilized, because I can tell you that the real world in the civil industry is very different to the technical information that you guys study. It's more of like a frontline basis of you getting an understanding of the different aspects of what civil engineering is like. And then once you sort of delve into the real world, it opens a whole different picture side of things as well too. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dominique. I have another question. What does a day in the life, or what can an early career professional such as a grad or an undergrad at North expect to do, expect to learn? Any thoughts on that?
Sorry, Andrew, would you mind repeating that?
Yep, no worries. I was just asking, what can an early career professional such as a grad or an undergrad expect to kind of work in or learn at North?
Yeah, so someone starting out, we've actually got an intern from Sydney University that's working with us at the moment. and we had obviously students that did their undergrad with us and then graduated and continued to work with us. What I'd say you would learn at North projects is what we have gone through is being able to look at drawings, and yeah, you're going to get involved with doing quantification, so marking up the drawings, measuring areas, measuring lengths, and like, yeah, it doesn't sound too exciting, but sometimes, to be honest, it's really nice to just put on the headphones and measure lengths. You come to appreciate those times. But yeah, and then once you get that, you got to transfer all your information into Excel, and then there's further calculations that you need to do. And people that are quite efficient in Excel get the job done really quickly and really good. So what I'd say is, and that one student that's with us at the moment from Sydney Uni, she's really good on Excel. I sat down with her and said, look, we need to get this, the end goal is this, and I gave her a few pointers on where to start, and then I left it with her, and she came up with a solution and devised a way to get to the end result. And I really like that, because when you come into a job, it's pretty busy, especially this industry. Yeah, need to show initiative and solve problems. So I'd say you'll learn that Excel, and you also learn to solve just everyday problems, which you guys are doing at uni at this time. Yeah, another thing is report writing as well, because another big part of our job is also producing reports to back up our cost estimates. So if you were to work at North, you'd also learn to deliver professionally written reports, and yeah, I think that goes into professional communication.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kyle. And just one more question before we wrap up. How could a student go about applying for a job at North, as a student or as a grad? Are there any opportunities available at this stage?
Yeah, so currently there's no opportunity at this point. We're waiting on a couple of projects to be awarded. So we don't have that opportunity right now. But like I've said at the SUSI event night that we had, I think last month, please feel free to email us your expression of interest with your CV. Tell us a bit about yourself on that. And when the time comes, because in consultancy, it's like waves. We go through waves of very, very busy times where we're working 12 to 14 hours a day. And then sometimes we just end up also with really relaxed times. In that sense, it's really reminds me of being back at university, where we get busy, and then just before the break, and and you got sleepless nights and then you submit your project, and then you have a bit of downtime after that. So yeah, and then also please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, and if you want to reach out, to be honest, I think another thing you learn in this industry, especially consulting, is communication. Sometimes just reaching out and talking to people is also a means. So at this point in time, we don't have anything, but we could have something, and yeah, maybe if you want to keep in contact, you might contact me on a day that we would have won a project and we need people. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kyle. And Dominic and Saidul, do you guys have anything to add before we wrap up?
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Why you go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay.
Oh,
So
wait. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So after graduating, say you will think what you will do, how you will start your career. So before that, I would suggest, say, create account in LinkedIn, explore the world. Like you can research about different projects, what is going around in Australia, how many projects are running. You can focus on different major projects. So you will have an idea, and people are say in the LinkedIn, they are sharing their thought as well. So better to start from now that researching about the industry, not only the infrastructure, you can start with building also. So civil engineering has diverse, like lots of courses you are studying. So all courses will have a practical application in different projects. So civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, they have the major contribution for all the construction sector. So that's why it is important to keep in touch with real world, not only the theoretical world. That's it.
Absolutely. Amazing advice. Thank you, Saidul.
I would like to add maybe one more thing as well on top of that. One key thing that I would probably say would be, while you guys are still, relatively young and about to go into the real world, I would suggest that any sort of opportunity that gets given to you, I would strongly recommend to, take it and give it a go. The reason why is because I was a prime example of it. Me studying uni, I obviously majored into structural design and transport modeling. And I always thought during my first 4 years of uni, I wanted to do structural design. It wasn't until I did my first internship, within 2 weeks sitting in, I was like, this isn't for me. And because of that, I then sort of transitioned into a different field. I actually did some site experience where I was on site for about 6 months to a year, where I sort of dealt along the side of the contractor's project management, gave it a go, gave them 110%, still didn't like it. And that's when I sort of spoke to my boss at that time. And I said, Steve, this isn't sort of the role and, field that I like to be in. Is there something else that you can give me a try before I decide to move on? And luckily, as he said, that we do have a different opportunity that I could try, which was cost estimation and tendering. And then from then on, it sort of inspired me to sort of pursue that avenue of doing cost estimations, first principles, and tenderings from a contractor's perspective. And then from that, it just spiraled on to doing consultancy for big infrastructure projects. And that sort of speaks back onto what Kyle mentioned earlier about communication is key. If you don't say something early on, the other party or other party members won't know what's going on. So really, in summary, what I could say is any opportunity that comes, just take it, give it a go. If it doesn't work out, you can always move on and try something else. So yeah.
Fantastic. Once again, such amazing advice. Thank you so much. And on that note, I think we can wrap it up. Once again, Kyle, Saidul, and Dominic, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days to come present to us. that was a really informative presentation, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And to all the students, thank you so much for joining us here on a Monday evening. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
Yeah, bye.
See ya.